All right, so we wanted to respond to Andrew's post about T for Transmedia because I think that was the article that we found we had the most to say about, and we could relate most to our experiences.
Yeah, I think that Andrew's argument using Oregon Trail was really valid because we were trying to think about it beforehand and neither of us could really remember anything about it besides
dysentery
and trying to keep that one girl alive, and she always died about halfway through. And you had to shoot things, but I don't think I actually remember anything about being a pioneer or the hardships of it. So in theory, it's great, and we all have very fond memories of it, but we don't necessarily have memories that we can relate to school or anything educational.
Yeah, and I remember loving Carmen Sandiego, but I don't know where in the world she was now. So
I don't remember what Carmen Sandiego was supposed to teach me. I remember loving it. I remember thinking it's awesome, and I'm really excited that they're apparently bringing it back. But I don't know what it was supposed to do for me.
The world.
The world?
The world.
It was supposed to teach you the world.
Yeah, where she was in the world.
So it was just teaching you about the world?
Oh, obviously, I think so.
Oh.
So anyway, on the other hand, though, what I do remember playing Oregon Trail is that I was supposed to be learning and I was having fun.
Yes.
And so if you don't get any facts out of it or memorization out of it, at least you do get the experience of having fun learning.
In theory, I think the idea of transmedia is great, but I don't know if it's necessarily there yet. I was actually thinking that Schoolhouse Rock was way more effective because Schoolhouse Rock taught me my grammar, it taught me really good rules for what not to do, had all those life lessons. And while I can't remember any right now, I do, if the song pops up, I remember it and I know how to do it. And I think they're still as beneficial as they were 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's something that we don't even need to update and we can still show to students and it still makes sense. Whereas something like, not necessarily Cookie Monster, but Oregon Trail, I don't know if you could give it to students now and they would have the same effect. It would have the same effect that it did for us. Like, I think that media has changed too much.
Yeah.
It's no longer something that we can really use.
Yeah, so ultimately, I think even if we didn't necessarily get a lot of facts out of it, at least we did enjoy the experience of learning, and so
it's an important tool to teach kids that learning can be fun.
Yeah.
Even if we don't necessarily remember all of what we were supposed to be learning.
But as an important tool, you were talking about this being the great equalizer, right?
Oh, yeah. So in the article it says having, these kind of things on an iPad will be a great equalizer, and it will make sure that even kids whose parents don't teach them to read, they'll still have that same opportunity to learn how to read and to get all those basic skills. But the problem is that technology, while it's supposed to be the great equalizer, is not, because an iPad is $400+. And while I can afford one, and Carolyn can afford one, and probably a lot of us in the class can afford one.
It's my financial aid.
Yes. How do parents who are scraping by afford an iPad? And then do they get, is it fair that those students that can't afford one are going to be even more far behind? And then how does that affect how we gauge those kind of learning activities either?
Yeah.
We talked about this in 510 is that fact that, in theory the schools should give these kids access to these things, but not all schools can afford it, of course, in different areas. Some of these ideas with transmedia, if transmedia is going to be one of the most effective learning tools, who's going to be exposed? If transmedia is one of the most effective learning tools, who's going to be exposed to it and who's not? And then, can we really say that it's an equalizer in that way, or is it just making the gap even more wide?
So it kind of moves into electricity because in Ulmer's description of electricity, he says that electricity is most associated with the institution of entertainment, whereas literacy is most associated with the institution of schools. And by combining those, we're kind of saying that the best way to learn is constant interaction. So we're redefining how people learn. I haven't thought anything past that.
So if we're trying to redefine not only how people learn, but how how we teach them as well. The school systems obviously are in some need of reconfiguring, but we haven't reached a point where I feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over again.
I think education through transmedia also changes the sense of community, kind of contributing to what Jennifer said. Jennifer, you ended by talking about how we are changing our idea of community. The world is becoming smaller and more unified, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in saying so, that's true, and it's not true because I don't want to say that. That was me.
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm. It's true and it's not true because we are certainly more unified in that we're getting more voices participating in our education. So our children have more voices contributing to their education through transmedia. However, it changes the idea of the local community's participation in a child's education, meaning it changes the parental or the guiding responsibility as well. And so it's entirely shifting what community is. So I don't know if it necessarily makes a community tighter, or I don't know if it necessarily connects a child more, because you could argue either way. The child is both more connected through his education with all of these other participating factors in transmedia, and less connected in that he's expected to take a more hands-on approach to his own learning or her own learning.